Hey, good Monday afternoon to you. How the hell is everybody doing today? I am fine and dandy. Welcome to the show. Now, if you've arrived from parts elsewhere, my new friends on new Discord channels that I have recently been invited to, welcome. I'm Bill Sylvie. Damn happy to see ya. It's good to have everyone here. So I reached out. Hello, Adam Black. I see you. Couple things. If you're watching this video in the future, to the future from the past, greetings from a DM. Hello, Rob. See you there. And you're like, hey, I didn't see this on Facebook. As of right now, 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, Facebook is down. I don't know what's going on with Facebook. I hate Facebook, the company, so I'm happy this happened. But I'm sad that I have friends on Facebook that I can now not engage with. So, my apologies. Hey, IR, and hello to Girly Man. All my friends over there at Imperial Ramblings and places beyond. Those of you who might not know this, there's a slight Venn diagram crossover between myself, the D&D guy, and the world of college football. And so on Sunday mornings at 7 o'clock, I guess 7 o'clock Western, at 9:05 Eastern, I do now I say I, myself, and a crew of fantastic people with great sports knowledge do a Sunday morning wrap-up of Saturday college football games. It's the Houndstooth Podcast. You can find it on YouTube. I'm there with Jessica Brand, John Henry, and Boganora, and we do a roundup and discussion of Alabama Crimson Tide college football. Then we talk about the SEC. Then we look at the top 10. Then we look at the top 25 and any other games that caught our interest. Anything else that might have been funny or interesting or that sort of thing. Like this weekend coming up, UConn is playing, I can't remember who they're playing, but there's 2 0-6 teams playing each other. They are literally playing to see which one of them will finally snap an enormous losing streak. So I'm sure we'll talk about that. So check us out on YouTube, Houndstooth Podcast. It refers to the rather natty checked pattern that Bear Bryant favored for hats and occasionally jackets and ties when he was coach for the Alabama Crimson Tide from the 1960s through to the early 1980s. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Hello, Damien. How are you? How are things in the game? What is a game? I'm not familiar with that. Is that is that game? Oh, hello from the game. No, pay attention to your game. Jehovah. Funny name there. Well, we're gonna be back later this week talking about the gods of Greyhawk, so you'll feel right at home, Jehovah. Rob, hello, passerby. Good to see you. Rob says, that it would explain why Facebook wouldn't open for me. Yeah, it's down for everybody. And like I said, I miss my friends, but if somebody detonated an EMP bomb over the Facebook servers, I wouldn't cry. So anyway, I was bold and I mentioned on Reddit, well, first of all, I got invited by a user to a wonderful subreddit. It's very small, but it's called AD&D Like It's 1983 Again, which is right in my wheelhouse. And so I put a link to the live streams there. And then I had a couple of people invite me to the Discords. So if you're coming in from those Discords or from parts unknown, welcome. Welcome to Delver's Livestream. It's safer here. Little, almost said Fallout 2, Half-Life 2 joke there. Raise my strength score and lower my encumbrance. Lowering your encumbrance won't work because muscle tissue is denser than fat. You know what, Damien? You should definitely stop by on Wednesday because my co-host Kyle, who will be returning this Wednesday, he is a lifter. I don't mean he's like one of those ridiculous dudes that has like muscles that have muscles. I mean, he's a fitness guy. Australian, ex-Australian Special Forces. He runs his own gym down there in Australia. That's why I do the Wednesday night stream on Wednesday night, because that's 9 o'clock in the morning Thursday for him. So he gets up first thing in the morning, has his cup of coffee, trundles out to his gym or to his office and live streams with us. And he's also a gamer nerd. So, you know, I don't think we're going to talk much about protein powder or bro, do you even lift? So I used to be in shape once upon a time. Then I got old and had kids, and it all fell apart. Hang on a second. Sorry, I'm fighting with a fan right now. That is having severe problems with noise. It gets hot under these studio lights. And I, in the past, have had the fan sitting on the table, but apparently it vibrates the whole table and it resonates through the mic and it sounds like I'm on an old film projector. So I was like, aha, I'll set it on the floor. But apparently my fan is just straight up dying because it sounds terrible. Oh, well, thank you, Jehovah. Thank you, guys. Thank you, anyone who's come along today. I really appreciate it. But you know what? I've run my mouth about that sort of thing enough. So if this is your first time coming to the live stream, again, welcome. All joking aside, I'm glad to have you here. Now, what you may or may not be aware of is this little YouTube channel that I have created here. I have striven to grow. There is a level of engagement that YouTube allows you. Yes, monetization, but also many other things that you can do if you have a minimum of 1,000 subscribers. Now, I am very happy to say that as of today, Monday, 12:38 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, October 4th, 2021, I have 802 subs. The channel has, over the last few months, to my observation, exploded. Now, 802 people will subscribe and unsubscribe to like your 20 and 30 million sub YouTube channels in the course of a few minutes, and they'll never notice it. Like the people who are running those channels, like even their super fans, are not in contact with their creators, okay? I get that. But, for me, 802 is pretty damn phenomenal. And the kicker, we are 198. That is less than 200. That means I can no longer say we're hundreds of subscribers away. We are less than 200 subscribers away from the Great Underground Game Con. That's right. When this channel hits 1,000 subs, you're going to see some serious shit. No, when this channel hits 1,000 subs, I am going to host a virtual tabletop gaming convention, I will run original D&D, first edition AD&D, Twilight 2000, first edition Gamma World. I'll even run some Tales from the Loop. When we hit 1,000 subs and the level of engagement on YouTube increases to the point where the videos will start getting promoted a little bit more, and I can do a little bit more engagement with you guys. I can do polls. I can ask you week to week what you want to see. I can put up thumbnail images. I can share image with you guys in discussion. It'll be a little bit more social media like and less like crazy guy sitting in converted garage office ranting into a microphone at you. So that's what we're striving for. So tell your friends, the guys you know down at the local gaming shop who are neckbeards like me and still like AD&D, just tell them all to come on over to the channel, click like, click subscribe, leave comments on the videos, click the bell icon. That helps too. And we'll have a lot of fun with it. 45-minute march before I did weight training. Wow, was something after you? Anyway, so that's enough about metrics and so on and etc. RIP headphone users there. Let's talk about what we really wanted to talk about today. I had a request from a buddy of mine to please discuss S3 Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. He's played first edition for a while, but he doesn't really know about some of the great classic AD&D modules. And when I brought up the fact that there was a science fiction AD&D module, it blew him away. So we're going to take a look at that today. Now, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks is one of the more memorable modules, and I'll tell you a little story about why, a little bit of engagement about why S3 is memorable to me. Once upon a time, there was a retail store chain here in the U.S. called Zayre's. And Zayre's was, believe it or not, one of the first places I saw Dungeons and Dragons that wasn't on a specific hobby store shelf. And in fact, I bought my first AD&D module there, which was Slave Pits of the Undercity. They also had Tomb of Horrors. I want to say they had Hidden Shrine of Tamokon, but they had Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. Now, towards the end of their life, Zayre's suffered a serious problem with shrink. And if you're not hip on retail terms, that's shoplifting. That's theft within and without. As I remember, the D&D things that they had in stock at the time were some packages of dice, the aforementioned modules, and I seem to recall on the shelf was the Grenadier Red Dragon's Lair. I think that was stock number 5002. And I remember initially someone had just taken the shrink wrap off of it. And I looked inside the box and I was blown away because there's the little glass gems in a packet and all, it's very cool lead mini. But as time went on and Zayre's started to decline even faster and faster and their toy department fell apart, case in point, they had an entire peg hook section back in that back corner of the store that were all die-cast Dugram, like 1/285 Dugram action figures imported from Japan. All the boxes were emptied. Everybody had boosted the toys out, and like Zayre's just didn't care. But these modules got opened. The shrink wrap got taken off. People just came through and looked at them, and they were scattered in bits and pieces, lying on different shelves and so on. So I got to look at Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, and I was... they also had Q1. I remember Q1 being there. But in looking at S3 back in those hoary old days of the 80s, like this cover illustration, this grabbed me. If you look here, let's see. I'm going to make, today, for reasons, I'm going to make this a little bigger. I'm going to make me a little smaller. I'm going to move me over here so you guys can see the module a little bit better. Because you don't need to see my mug. We know what we're here for. So let's make that a little bigger. So imagine your perception of Dungeons and Dragons as this quasi Lord of the Rings-esque, you're fighting very identifiable Western, specifically Northern European tropes. And then you see this. What do we got going on in this cover illustration? Okay, there's a horrible plant monster thing. And expedition to the Barrier Peaks. I mean, Barrier Peaks, it's just kind of mountains. It's not particularly science fiction-y. But very clearly, we have a fighter guy with this bat-winged helmet on. Thank you, Errol Otis. Always and forever. And what's he doing to the plant monster? He is firing a ray gun through it. Hold up. If you're 10, 12, 13 years old, you just got onto that D&D train in the 80s. You're not familiar with Dragon Magazine, Gamma World, Metamorphosis Alpha, OD&D, which talks about having robot player characters and so on. This is you're just getting out into the world of AD&D. And suddenly, here's a guy going full Captain Kirk on this Sarlacc-looking thing, right smack dab in the middle of the page. You've now got to be saying, what in the hell? As I was. So I wanted more of this. And we look at the, the cover blurb doesn't really give us much. This module was the official Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Tournament scenario at Origins 2. The author wishes to express his thanks to Mr. Robert Kuntz, who contributed substantial ideas for the various encounters herein. This version has been carefully revised and updated to conform to Advanced Dungeons & Dragons game system. Included herein are background information for players, statistics for a party substantially the same as that used for the tournament, DM's notes, 6-level maps with encounter matrices, and numerous full-color illustrations of scenes from the adventure in order to enhance the enjoyment of the participants. There are also many new and special monsters designed for this scenario, and they appear nowhere else. This module is located upon the map of the world of Greyhawk. If you enjoyed this module, be sure to try any of the other many unique offerings in this line from TSR. Whoa! You're still not cluing us in there, Mr. Writer. What is this? What's going on? There's a special illustration booklet included. It was played as a contest game off once upon a time somewhere. But what's going on? Why is my man Batwing firing a laser gun through this giant critter? Well, let's just assume you don't have one that some would-be sticky fingers has peeled the cover plastic off of. And let's take a look at the back. Snap down a little too hard there. Oh, tell me this PDF actually has the back. I'm spoiling it. Major spoiler alerts. Cover your eyes. These are all the internal booklets. Yeah, so here we go. It gets curiouser and curiouser because, again, we got a bunch of people. This is Jim Rosloff. Rest in peace, Jim, his works. Some guys fighting plant dudes or dudes wearing plants. But that's clearly some kind of a technological situation going on back there. And there's no more input. Very curious, isn't it? Damien says, I have to ask, is there power armor in this module? Be patient, my son. So I think we all know full well what Expedition to the Barrier Peak is. So I'm just going to rip that Band-Aid off. If you don't know, if you're, curious, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks involves a mission given to a high-level party. And let me tell you what, character levels 8 to 12, unless that 8 is for, say, a bard, I wouldn't believe that. This is more of a 10 to 14 module. I think Gary definitely aimed a little low on that. But what has happened is, in the Duchy of Jeff, yes, the same one that is plagued by giants, in the titular barrier peaks, I almost said the Barry Peaks, in the titular barrier peaks, a spaceship has crashed. Well, it has landed, I should say, but its crew long since perished due to a plague that ravaged the ship. Earthquakes caused a landslide that buried the ship, and so it sat there for however long. Its systems still activated, but over time, decaying, malfunctioning. And as time has gone on, its science labs and arboretums and so on and etc. have kind of gone nuts and evolved into new and dangerous creatures. And where we pick up is that there has been another landslide that has now uncovered part of the ship, which has exposed a cargo hatch. And periodically, when alien creatures sampled from other worlds have been that were stored in stasis on this exploratory vessel break out, the slightly malfunctioning remaining robot crew of the ship opens the cargo door and throws them out, thus populating Greyhawk with all kinds of strange monsters in that locale. This, needless to say, is causing some consternation amongst the lords of the nation of Jeff. So you're sent in to see what the hell is going on. Let's just get a knife and a fork and dive right in to the introductory text, because Gary kind of says it better than me. And he explains how this came to be. So if you're listening and you can't quite watch along because you're driving or working out or whatever, we have the introductory text here. This is the preface. Gary says, this module was begun in early 1976 when TSR was contemplating publication of a science fantasy role-playing game. Jim Ord had already shown us some rough notes on Metamorphosis Alpha. I thought it would be a splendid idea to introduce Jim's game at Origins 2 and introduce the concept to D&D players by the means of the tournament scenario. I laid out the tournament from old Greyhawk Castle campaign material involving a spaceship, and Rob Kuntz helped me populate the ruined vessel. Both this scenario and Metamorphosis Alpha proved successful, but while the latter has been continually available since mid-1976, only a few copies of the tournament dungeon used for Origins 2 have been around. Metamorphosis Alpha is currently being rewritten and expanded for a major new edition, and Gamma World game is highly popular too. As this module offers a unique and challenging blend of fantasy and science fantasy role-playing, it seemed logical to reintroduce it to the public. What could be more logical than to make available a scenario which blends the two role-playing approaches into a single form? Now, designed to be playable with advanced Dungeons & Dragons rules, the Expedition to the Barrier Peaks will serve as both an exciting insertion into your campaign and as a primer on how to combine science into your fantasy role-playing. I hope that you will enjoy reading it and playing it as much as I enjoyed writing it. And then we kind of get into what I was telling you guys earlier, the background information. The Grand Duchy of Jeff has been recently plagued by a rash of unusually weird and terrible monsters of an unknown sort. This western area, particularly the mountain fastness which separates the Grand Duchy from the dry steppes, has long been renowned for the generation of the most fearsome beasts, and it has been shunned accordingly, save for a handful of hardy souls with exceptional abilities and sufficient wealth to build stout strongholds to ward off the attacks of the predatory creatures infesting the rugged lands thereabout. Within the last few months, however, a walled town not far distant from the area, and 4 small fortresses as well, were destroyed by mysterious attacks. The remaining barons and lords have preserved in brine several partially decomposed corpses found on or near the sites of the ravaging. While those strange bodies are assumed to have belonged to the forces which were responsible for the destruction, the remains were too far gone to learn anything other than they were of creatures heretofore unknown to even the wisest sages of Jeff. The urgent plea for aid which accompanied these gruesome corpses could not be ignored, and the Grand Duke acted immediately. Choosing several of his doughtiest henchmen to lead the expedition, he called upon the other powers of the state to likewise furnish their minions for the expedition as well. Thus, the Society of the Magistreve, the Fellowship of the Blinding Light, the Magsman Brotherhood, and the High Lord of Elvendom at Hotchcove also selected the bravest adventurers and equipped them accordingly to accompany the expedition as their representatives. A total of 15 have assembled beneath the pinioned turrets of the Grand Duke's mighty castle near Gorna. There it was learned that several unconfirmed reports have related that monsters have been disgorged from a gated cave at random intervals. The entrance to this place is high upon a rocky face and sheathed in armor. The protection has purportedly frustrated all attempts to explore the space beyond the metal valve, although several search parties have entered, entirely disappeared. So it is possible that they entered but never returned. Your expedition must find out exactly what this cave is, what is causing the monsters to come forth, and who is responsible, and how to prevent further incursions. In addition, any other information regarding this mysterious locale, its strange denizens, magical devices, or unusual weaponry is highly desirable. His High Radiance, Owen III, has assured all of the concerned parties that whatever information is gained will be given to all, and wealth found will be shared according to the contribution each individual or representative group makes to the overall success of the expedition. If necessary, the Grand Duke has vowed to send forth an army to lay waste to the offending place and extinguish every living thing therein. Should your expedition not meet with total success, should your expedition not meet with total success, this step will be considered, but His High Radiance personally doubts such extreme measures will be required considering the strength of the expedition and the ability of its members. The Grand Duke feels assured that you will certainly locate the person or thing responsible for the troubles plaguing Jeff and eliminate him, her, or it from the face of the land. And so it talks about getting your retainers together. Now, as of course, again, you understand, the ship is a starship that has crashed on Gorna. Now, or on Greyhawk rather, near Gorna. The ship itself has not crashed, though. It has merely crash landed, which opens up several interesting adventuring possibilities. Now, as I said, some of the ship systems were still working. So immediately out of the box, we are told that some ship lighting works, some of it doesn't. So players might or might not need torches. And I would estimate that by the time your players are 9th through 12th level, they're going to have ample magic items to produce light. And then failing that, there's continual light spells and so on and etc. So, it's given there. Scale, of course, we have the classic, 10-foot wide halls divided into gridded. I am assuming there's not grid lines on the floor, but it's a spaceship. There might be. So it's 10 by 10 squares, normal throughout the map. Now, interestingly, we hit kind of our first, I don't want to say wonky because they're not necessarily bad, but our first curves are, there are certain doors that have key cards that can activate doors of certain colors. So a gray card will only open a gray hatch. A brown card will only open a brown hatch. And there's universal color cards. I believe a black card is universal, but don't quote me on that. Doors and hatchways need special attention, for they require color cards to function, so standard door symbols cannot be employed, and care must be taken to correctly recall which letter code represents which order of card. You should, that is something you should print out, write down, have on a note card handy when you're running this module, and have it very readable on the module, which hatches do what. The letter symbols for doors or color of card activate are G is a gray card, of course, R is red, Y is yellow, O orange, V violet, B brown, and J jet black. And thank you for not using multiple symbols like GR or GRN, if there were green cards. But like jet black card, you didn't just say, lowercase b. So J, jet black card. Whenever their party approaches a standard door, display illustration number 1. Now that's where we jump in. And if you are familiar with TSR modules of the time, this will come as no surprise. And in fact, it is regarded as one of the best features of Expedition to the Barrier Peaks is the massive illustration area. So I'm not going to go like item by item, encounter by encounter through the module. We'd be here until 9 o'clock tonight doing that. But I will show you guys the illustration manual. And we're gonna answer some questions about it too. So let's see. About to head home. Hopefully I get back in time. Well, put me on your phone. Listen to me on your phone. So we're gonna look at the illustration manual real quick because it is really fascinating. And it virtually takes any illustrations. I say virtually, not completely, out of the module itself. There's a great Intellect Devourer drawing by Jeff D. And yeah, the Intellect Devourer being an alien creature from another planet just fits really well. The illustration is nice, and I mean, other than the 70s bell-bottom boots that Jeff D liked to put on every D&D character he drew just about. I'm not incredibly fond of the Intellect Devourer as... Oh, it's not going to let me highlight it. The Intellect Devourer as a four-legged brain. I kind of like the one that is in Eldritch Wizardry. Not illustration-wise, but it is a dead black sphere with 4 lion's feet. I like that one better, but, horses for courses. So there is a bit of illustration in the module, but it is almost superseded. But what we get in the module is great. There's Jim Rosseloff. There's some characters in an Arboretum fighting a shambling mound. And this is such a great way to say, this is why there are these really, truly bizarre creatures on Greyhawk. They're from other worlds. And they came on this ship. And over the years, they were exfiltrated out. And now you'll never get rid of them. Here's something I did want to stop and look at, though. And this is the technological items area. This comes up again in Gamma World, but there are items on the ship, of course, as you would imagine, food dispensers, ray guns, grenades, radios, etc., 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 that can perform certain tasks. As your players pick them up, and as you describe them, don't say, it's a gun. It is a spade-handled device with its longer side a shining tube of some lightweight unknown metal. And just leave it at that. As if you say, oh, well, yeah, it's a ray gun, they're going to say, oh, okay, well, I pull the trigger. Your characters should be considering things from or your players should be considering things from the perspective of someone to whom this type of thing is wholly alien, because it is. But as they pick these items up and try to use them, there are a series of die rolls, and these are very computer programming flowchart looking things. And this one has you rolling a d10. So, simple non-lethal items. Items using this chart: power disk, wound healing canister, portable spotlight, language translator, atmosphere analyzer, anti-gravity belt. So what you would do if you had, say, a wound healing canister is you'd start here and you'd roll a d10. And depending on your intelligence, there might be modifiers to that. Intelligence less than 10, you'd add 1 to the score. Intelligence over 15, you'd subtract 1. Like or similar object observed in operational procedures, also -1. Previous explanation or previous explanation of operation of or... No, it says of item by one familiar with it. Operated a similar item. And these are cumulative. So you might have an int over 15. You've seen another character use this item through some means in the ship. You've had it explained, and you've used one before. So you'd be at a total of -6 on your die roll. So let's just say I've got an int over 15. Right off the bat, I find this silvery gray cylinder with what appears to be a white knob or button of worked bone on top that has a pinhole next to it. And the DM knows that it's a wound healing canister. So I say, well, I'm going to try and see what this thing does. Okay, so I roll a d10. I've got an int over 15, but that's the only advantage I've got. So I rolled a 7. That becomes a 6. So I go to the middle. And now there's a possibility. I roll a d8 on a 1 to 4. I finish, but on a 6 to 8, I'm still monkeying with it. So let's see. I rolled a 2. I turn it over in my hands. I say, okay, I'm going to extend it out and push the button. A cool white antiseptic smelling mist spritzes forth. It gets on your fingers, which, you had burned the night before, or, ripped a nail off, prying open something earlier. And suddenly the little aches and pains just go away wherever the spray touches, and the flesh seems to knit up. I have now figured out how to use a wound healing canister. Gamma World functions much the same way. Gamma World uses tables like this extensively. And they get more complex. Complex non-lethal items. A wheelie sled, diving equipment, diving jetpack. Yes, they have frogman gear here. So let's say I find some of that. Still int 15. Well, I rolled a 7. 6 to 8. So I go up here to the triangle. And I roll a d10 again. Oh, I rolled a 1. So now we're to the center circle. And from here, once again, I roll a d6. Or here, let me see, 1 to 4, 5 to 6. But I can also go. All right, no, it's a d10 again. So let's see. We're subtracting 1, so that becomes 7. But it takes me another step. I don't lose anything or damage anything, but it takes me another step. So roll again. 4, that becomes 3. That takes me back to the center. 7, that becomes 6. That takes me back to the start. I'm still fumbling with this thing and trying to figure it out. Start a 9. Charge or use wasted. So maybe I turn a valve. Oh, well, no, that becomes an 8. That becomes an 8. So that takes me up. You guys kind of get the idea. 7. Okay, so that becomes a 6. That takes me back to the start. 9, that becomes an 8. 8 becomes a 7. Again, back to start. 9, 7 at 6. Again, back to start. A 2. Okay, now I go straight to the middle. An 8, that becomes a 7. A 3, that becomes a 2. Back to the middle. And back to start. So you can go in circles with these charts for a long time. And then you've got simple lethal items. Fire extinguisher, because I guess it's oxygen denier. Blaster pistol, laser rifle, needler pistol, paralysis pistol, and grenades. On this chart, the item can injure or it can be destroyed. So you can blow yourself up with a grenade, which of course would destroy it by default. But if it's a blaster pistol, you could shoot yourself with a blaster pistol and do damage to yourself trying to figure it out. Complex lethal items using this chart. Power armor, blaster rifle. Now a note on the discharge person is hurt. Grenade explodes. Pistol discharges. 50% chance that it hits handler. 50% for any creature within range at random if applicable, etc. So complex lethal items can potentially kill you. Now, Gamma World's use of tables like these are much more extensive, and they can kill you outright. You've got some pure strain human farmer boy who has lived his life like it's in the 1800s, nice, pleasant little valley, digging in a field one day, unearths a suit of power armor, says, hey, this looks like you could get inside, flips it on, and it crushes him to death. That can happen. So regardless of what you find, these tables will cover what happens when you try to use them. Technological items, anyway. But once you have a handle on these things, if you can with the ones that require power discs, which are basically the lithium-ion batteries for all this gear, once you acquire enough of those, you can potentially have a pretty powerful party walking around with blasters and ray guns and power armor. Yes, power armor. And we're going to get onto the illustration booklet. Don't worry, guys. I'm heading there now. So the illustration booklet, because Gary said, look at illustration number 1. Let's zip on down. Here we are with this amazing artwork. Hello, kitty. with this amazing artwork from from Errol Otis, sorry. Amazing writing by Gary. So there's your simple door. Aren't you glad we waited for that? That's just a simple hatchway. There's a key slot, a key card slot. I will not. Windows is like, hey, restart your PC. No. Illustration 2, you kind of get a feel. Just, there's some scattered stuff around the floors. This is a drop chute. This is an anti-grav drop chute, which those can be working or not. And your players will figure out pretty quickly which ones are working and which ones are not working. But yeah, predictably bad things will happen if they step into a non-working drop chute. Here is where they find the ship when they come to it, and you want to explain what they see. Now, the illustration in the booklet's a little bit clearer. This is not a great scan. I'll kind of zoom into that. But it does kind of lend the impression of hugeness of this section of the ship. I know DMs who've done a lot with this module, just in terms of overall awesomeness. Veg pygmies and a dog-like thing. So, it's great. So you're showing the character this illustration. Okay, well, let's see. You say there's I'll just slide in each one of these plaques. Oh, the door opens. That's great. What do we see? This. Roll for surprise. And we have different maintenance bots. Again, very nicely illustrated by Errol Otis. That one's a little funky. This guy's a little bit more acid trippy. Veg pygmy and a shrieker. Came to see what the shrieker was yelling about. This charming young lady is actually... Now, this is one of the more interesting aspects. She is a medical robot, a medical android, and has stats. She is fully statted out. She's neutral. She can take, I think, 40 hit points, 30 hit points or something before she completely malfunctions. But she basically knows how to use all the medical stuff on the ship. It's up to you as a DM if you'd want to do this, but it would be interesting to allow her to leave and accompany the party if they could communicate with her. But if an injured party member just goes in and says, she'll move to them and start healing them immediately. So her benevolence should be evident. In a room nearby, if I recall correctly, there's a surgeon robot that if you go in, will seize the character and proceed to begin to vivisect them. Just clamp them down onto a surgery table, take out his laser scalpel, and just start performing surgery on them. No anesthesia, no goal. He has malfunctioned. Ah, there he is, the surgery guy. Step right up. That is the captain of the ship. You can... if you have comprehend languages or helm of comprehending languages or whatever, you can, from here, you can get a picture of what happened. Essentially, the section of the starship you're on, the whole starship itself was modular, like the Enterprise. By the way, piece of trivia, in an emergency, even the original Enterprise, like Captain Kirk original, I'm not talking about the TV show Enterprise, whatever, could detach its saucer section or jettison the warp pods and move away under slow impulse power. They just made it a thing in later episodes. Or in later series of the show. But what happened on the ship was this fellow realized that there was a disease that was driving the crew insane, that was loose on the ship. And since he didn't want it to spread to other parts of the ship, they sealed off their section and continued on through space, kind of a doomed Flying Dutchman. until the entire crew succumbed. At some point, the drifting ship was pulled into a black hole. And because this is science fantasy, it wasn't, crushed down into something smaller than the smallest grain of sand. It was spat out of a white hole, and its automated systems recognized that there was a Earth-like or human-compatible planet, Greyhawk, or Earth, rather, and landed, and that's where we get up. And his sad story, you can tell. There's his desktop computer, the latest 1970s technology, a slidey button, some knobs, and what looks like an old-style cable TV channel selector on the bottom. Storage cubicles, another ruined area of the ship, a control panel, another robot, more robots, more abandoned hallway. And this is the grav sled and an instruction illustration. I like to have fun with this module when characters do have comprehend languages going. Things like figuring out the captain's log and so on is very easy. But there are words that have no analog. So servo motor. What does servo motor mean to your character? You don't know. You don't know what a servo motor. Maybe it's some kind of servant. You don't know. This is the Arboretum. That's full of all kinds of nasty science fiction-y creatures. And we get some of the great monsters of Greyhawk here. Or great monsters of D&D. These are various plants that can attack you. The web bird, which is just awful in every way. The web bird seeks to kill you and lay its eggs in you. It's an illustration on how to use... these are basically fixed binoculars for looking down at the alien wildlife in the Arboretum. There's an undersea aquarium bit in the ship. Somebody asked about power armor. Well, here you go. Yes, there is power armor. Or is this... This might be the diving suit. This might actually be the diving suit. But there is power armor in the book. A giant alien slug. The aforementioned attacking plants. Here's a guy. And this always was supremely creepy. This stuff is working through him. It's nah, bro. You're a meal. Just, it's going to happen. Nothing you can do to stop it. Some small dinosaur-like creatures. And now we get into the color plates. And again, I apologize for the quality of this scan. And by the way, this module is available. Goodman did a deluxe re-release. I'm kind of on the fence about those. If they sold the AD&D re-releases of them separately and I didn't have to buy the 5e dross, I could just get the AD&D modules and the history stuff, I'd be a lot happier about it, but that's not the case. But I did get for Christmas one year the Expedition to the Barrier Peaks hardback from them, which was supposed to have the original Origins 2 module in it, and it did not. Logistical things prevented that from happening, and it's a shame. But otherwise, it's got some brand new Aero Lotus color art in it that makes it worth the purchase. Of course, I would say a third of it, maybe a little bit more, maybe 5/16, 6/16. Oh wait, 6/16. Yeah. Anyway, is 5e, and I don't want it or need it. So here are some color illustrations, magnificent color illustrations from Errol Otis of the ship run amok. Now, doesn't that look pleasant? I mean, ignoring the the Gila monster there lurking in the middle, and the 4-foot long centipede, and the snake, and the dragonfly looking thing. The froghemoth. This is why I don't think this module is suitable for 8th level characters on the low end. The froghemoth has ridiculous amounts of hit points and attacks. The froghemoth will ruin your party if you run it properly. Ah, yes. Another favorite of mine. Now, this guy shows up in other modules. Actually, I think he's in S4 as well. This is the Arumvorax. The Arumvorax is very small, but he is a 6-legged, 2-foot-long, badger-like creature that fights like a fucking red dragon. I would drop one of these things on a red dragon, and half the time the Arumvorax is going to win. They're bad news. When they bite you, they latch on and get automatic hits with all 6 claws. They're practically immune to fire and crushing blows and take half damage from stabs. Yeah, Arumvorax are really bad news. Some lovely terrain with a dead guy. Obviously, things didn't go well for him. The infamous Trifrond flower, which will jack you up. Different types of fauna. The squealer with that arm growing out of the middle of its back. Ah, yes, the wolf in sheep's clothing. The cute little bunny sitting on a tree stump that then turns into that and attacks you. It's got a fungus that grows on top of its head that looks like a bunny rabbit. And, of course, you know, it just wants to grab you and eat you. That is like something out of a Jim Henson fever dream or an Evil Dead movie. I love it. Back to technological stuff. Now, this is supposed to be a shocking moment. As your party is monkeying about, this panel opens, and there's space flying by. And the trick in this encounter is that you try to convince the party that they somehow reactivated the ship and they're now flying through space. But the reason that's there in the crew lounge area is it's described that hyperspace is just kind of a gray null. And it's to give the crew something to look at. A looped video of normal space. Or I would even say a computer-generated video of normal space. So it doesn't loop. The computer just procedurally generates this sensation of flying through space. So your party's like, oh no, okay, I saw that star system go by just now. Whoops. I saw that star system go by just now. So this is some kind of an illusion. Don't let them off. The gas bat. If you strike them, they explode. Ah, yes, the physical fitness bot that can beat you to death. The fencing robot that can fight you and stab you. The karate robot that can also beat you to death. David S. LaForce, not even kidding with that guy's stance. Another physical fitness robot. Brobot, do you even lift? He will beat you to death with gym equipment. I'm not making that up. Yes, that is a bulette you see on that giant force field thing there, and the robots are getting ready to throw it out of the ship. And there it goes. Now we get into the equipment. This, believe it or not, is actually a blaster pistol. And this funky looking device is a blaster rifle. The controls are on this large section here. And you basically slip it over your shoulder. Adjust the power level with these buttons. It clamps on with this around your arm, and the beam comes out here, and it's fired through the firing stud there. I always loved this illustration, and the very idea just thrills me. That is a laser pistol, and that is a laser rifle. The laser rifle comes with an AR headset for targeting. You wear the headset, and it uses a targeting reticule and so on. I think this is a needler pistol. See how like, if you show your characters this, they're not going to know where the danger comes from on that thing. That is a sonic stunner. I believe that's a grenade. Power armor. A power armor suit. And other various doodads. I think that's another stunner of some kind. That's some kind of sensor module. There's a medical hypo. And that's the end of the technological items illustration section that you can throw at your characters. Can you see how wild that would be? How not ergonomic the characters can't just say, okay, I grab it and I squeeze that hook thing that's sticking down. Very well done job. I imagine that Gary worked pretty closely with the artist to make sure the characters don't have too much giveaway here in what things are and what they do. Or even monsters and what they do. But these are all awesome illustrations of a desolate starship. Now, as far as encounters go, and here's a nice cross-section of the ship with the central arboretum and underwater areas and so on. And it labels each one. Officials, officers, and technicians' quarters, service deck 5 or tween decks, upper walkway and lounge area, botanical gardens. I think that's supposed to be rookery and menagerie. Service deck 6 or garden between decks. Sublevel 5, atmospheric ballast. Don't even know. Level 6, theater, athletic, and activity deck. And it points out this level is inaccessible unless by some magical means, pass wall, wish, etc. Now that's something else. Oh, and here's the character roster. That's something else. Your characters might go using phase door and pass wall and teleport and so on willy-nilly. The ship is still operational. There are force fields in place that might stop characters from teleporting or detecting or using trucing or anything like that. But there's also a functional reactor somewhere in the ship. Where that is up to you. But if the players teleport in, appropriately terrible things should happen to them. And there are other creatures who are circumscribed inside. There are Lamassu who are deathly afraid of the Mind Flayer and the Intellect Devourers loose on the ship that would love to have the party's help. So not everything in here is completely awful. And then we have kind of the monster manual for it. We have worker robots and which illustrations to use. Police robots. Just general androids. Androids are designed to appear exactly as a human does. Half are male and half are female. Each has a built-in frequency key to duplicate yellow and violet color cards. This will permit androids to gain access to all areas requiring these colored cards. Androids are programmed to be able to use any human standard weapons. They are impervious to cold, take only half damage from acid or fire, paralysis gas, poison, and gaze weapons are useless against them, but if hit with electrical attacks, there's a 1% chance per hit point of damage that they sustain that the attack will short circuit their circuits, or will short their circuits. Immersion in water for full 3 rounds will always short circuit an android unless it is specially built underwater module. As they are machines, spells do not have any effects unless the magic affects their components. Thus, any charm or hold is useless, but a heat metal spell would do damage as noted with respect to hit points to the android. Androids with various purposes have different strength ratings. Standard strength is 15 on female models and 16 on male versions. Don't at me. Dexterity standard is 18. Guard androids have human maximums. Doesn't say female or male, it says human maximums. So you give 18 double nuts for them. Vision is 150% with infravision to 60 feet. Audio sensors are 150% of human norm. At 7% or fewer hit points remaining, there's a 50% chance per round that the android will cease functioning. And again, some androids may attack you and try to kill you. Others may not. There are rations. You can find foods. I love this. Possible contents of a ration pack are protein stews, porridges, nutrient drinks, surrogate steaks, vegetable substitutes, and Vita bars. Sounds about like what you're going to find on the shelf at a what is that? The Whole Foods. That's it. I was struggling there. Whole Foods. But there's fire extinguishers that do damage. 1 to 6 hit points of damage to cold-blooded creatures and 3 to 12 points of damage to plants. Fire extinguisher on the ship is very handy. Hand pump spray gun, wound healing canister, power discs, useful for everything. Gas masks. This absolutely lovely illustration by Jim Rosloff of flying belts, straight out of John Carter. Those, I love those flying belts, man. And yes, powered armor. Looks like a suit of unusual plate armor. The joints appear to be finely, if somewhat strangely, articulated, and an oily black leather-like material may be seen at major joints. The armor appears to have been worked to create the illusion of a heavily muscled man. The great helm is unusual in that it has no openings, only a broad glass plate in front with a piece of glass above this. There are strange plates and tubing at various points, and the large metal bosses seem to be placed randomly on the suit. On the back of the left hand is a rectangular metal box. From this comes a short projecting rod tipped with a cone-shaped red crystal or jewel. It would seem that there must be a man inside, for the armor always stands erect, although unmoving. Then it explains how to get into it. It's got a force shield, it's got anti-grav, and so on. But it does use power discs. Everything on the ship, even if your players go nuts and are like, we figured it all out, power armor, laser guns, disruptor guns, grenades, hypo sprays, anything that's not self-contained, like a hypo spray or a grenade or the food packets, use power discs. And when those are gone, the suits they have are unusable. Now, if they go wishing for more power discs, I mean, they're operating at a level where they might have a wish or two. I would absolutely, positively stand on 100% abuse of the wish system rules. If they, if they run out of juice for their blaster and they eject a power disc and they say, I would like 100. I wish I had 1,000 of these. Give them 1,000 dead ones. If they say, I would like an infinite power source for this, for this blaster, a cord that stretches through the decks and plugs into a wall socket that's running off the reactor, but it's not going to go outside the ship. If they very, very, very exactly, precisely, carefully, rules lawyer, hand you 2 handwritten pages front and back, single spaced, and describe how they want more power sources and say that's how they're going to word their wish, and they've really done it the right way, then grant it. But if somebody just, again, if they're just like, yeah, I want 100 of these things, and they're holding up a dead power disc, give them all the dead power discs they ask for. These things can jack a game up. They really can. Now, if you want to go the other way, now let me talk about a couple of options I have often preached about. The schnozberries taste like schnozzleberries. Do the droids dream of electric sheep? That's a good question, and I think I would think that the androids on the starship know that they're androids, so the question of are they human or not would be more of a quandary for the players than it would for the androids. Well, I'm a machine. What do you have no ropes, you have no pulleys, I see no gearworks, I see no steam coming out of you. You're a person. You have soft plant flesh. Well, no, that's synthetic. I don't know what that word means. There'd be a lot of back and forth, I think. The real challenge, how do they reverse engineer the power disk? Exactly. And take Back to the Future. Doc Brown, when they blew the supercharger on the gas engine for the for the DeLorean in Back to the Future 3, he was like, yeah, this is going to take 6 months to fix. And that's the Doc being a scientist who invented a time machine and having technology that is not that primitive. He can explain like that silvery white powder that's called bauxite ore. And, I can explain how to forge that and how to, sand cast and recast and grind down and polish a new supercharger housing and etc. Your characters in S3 are not necessarily going to be Doc Brown level of knowledgeable. And they're not going to be running around saying, oh, I invented a power disk, Maybe for just the laser pistol, they're able to suss it out and figure out some primitive lead acid battery where they get like 4 or 5 shots out of this giant jug of lemon juice that they carry around with a couple of copper leads that go into the butt of the pistol. They get a few shots out of it during the day, and then they have to wait at night for their primitive battery to charge back up. The kerning is demonic. It is. The kerning is awful. So yeah, I'm gonna answer. I'm gonna answer a few questions about the module now. Greetings, Chris. Good to see you. Wow, I missed a lot of stuff running my mouth. All right. Does it not look like a bowless crossbow with a tube instead of arrows? I would be very coy about that as a DM passerby, but I might let you get away with figuring it out. But then, what is its power source? And so on and etc. Chris says, love Gary's take on the technology in this module, just familiar enough to make people think they know what it is, and just different enough to make them get it wrong, especially with weapons. Truth. I have the recent Froghemoth mini. A few companies have done Froghemoth minis. I've thought about getting one, but then it's like, do I really need it? Am I going to run S3 anytime soon? Badgers, we ain't gonna show you no stinking badgers. Prog Rock Spaceship Lounge. Absolutely. The Spaceship Lounge, you're gonna go in there and, you're gonna find silvery discs, CDs, but eventually when the characters get to listen to them, they're gonna be listening to like Yes and Genesis, Gentle Giant and stuff like that. Like, wow, this stuff really does invoke the idea of the great outer space. It's the Windows screensaver. I'd be afraid because he's wearing sweatbands. Yeah. RoboCop targeting system for sure. Smart goggles. And yes, the OCR was massacred on this PDF. I haven't seen newer scans of it. This is back from when they were doing scans back in the day. The new scan might be better. You guys would have to tell me. This reminds me of Starcross or Planetfall. Starcross and Planetfall were great games, and they're very, very similar to this. And one of the things is Suspended, which is an Infocom text adventure about a person who has been placed inside a suspended animation system. Basically, you get to be ruler of this computer-controlled city for a year, and you have to manage robots that run around and do all the things for you. The subtitle of the story is A Cryogenic Nightmare, and I think that's absolutely true. But it plays well into S3 because it's a text game. It can only describe things to you in text form. You have to suss out what it is your helper robots are looking at, because there are no pictures in the game. The mage hotwires a way to turn a jewelry of spell storing into an ad hoc batteries. Yeah, no. No, negative. So that is a brief look at S3, the module, and I want to share a few final thoughts on it, because we have gone really long today. I didn't mean to run an hour and 15 minutes. That's what I get for being self-aggrandizing and welcoming people on. But thank you if you've stuck around this far. So the module itself is great in that if you didn't want to get if you didn't want to get Metamorphosis Alpha and you didn't want to get Gamma World, but you wanted to rework AD&D into a science fiction game, this is all you need. This is literally all you need. You could bring as much into AD&D as you wanted, or bring as much into the technological world as you wanted. But you now have rules in front of you for basic technological items. And even if your party is Star Trek, you could run Star Trek with this. Even if your party is technologically inclined, I mean, think about Star Trek, how long it would take Spock to figure something out. Just long enough to advance the plot, I get that. But you could use these tables for truly alien technology. Or you could bust this concept wide open. You know, the characters basically, you know, they storm the dungeon, they clean it out, they slay all of the monsters, and they go back and they tell the leaders, or they don't. Look, if we take some time to study this strange ship of the sky, we might be able to get it to move again. Imagine your party, either accidentally or on purpose, flying off into space in this spaceship once they get it mostly under control, and exploring strange new worlds, seeking out new life and new civilizations, boldly going where no Greyhawker had gone before. I think this module is much more than just a techno dungeon and a ruined starship, and it can be and it should be. I think you, as a DM, if you're going to run this module, you should run this as the denouement of an AD&D campaign and send them somewhere else. Now, if they don't take the bait, they don't take the bait. I get that. But I think if your characters figure it out by hook or by crook, and they can get this spaceship up and running again, have fun with it. There are so many opportunities. You know, maybe they wind up on Earth, capital E, Earth. I always assumed the ship was from Earth. It just, the weird alienness of it and weird futurism of it was 70s futurism of what, you know, the year 2300 might be like. And the weird alienness of it was to make it so that the players weren't going, oh yeah, this is a spaceship from Earth. But, you know, if let's say they get it into orbit and activate a homing beacon and its hyperdrive kicks on and it retraces its steps and navigates it back to a futuristic Earth. Or maybe they arrive at Earth and the Great War has happened, and now it's Gamma World. Or maybe it comes across the Starship Warden as it's flying through space. Now it's Metamorphosis Alpha. Guys, there's a lot of great stuff in this module. Even if you're never going to run the module itself, if you want, you know, who's that calm, patient, pretty, ageless, mysterious lady who, you know, lives in this village of a few hundred where no children have fallen ill. You know, there have been no stillbirths. The age-lived much longer lives than men normally do. Yet, no magic, either thaumaturgical or spiritual, seems to ever be employed. You know, maybe that's the medic robot who brought a solar powered replicator and some basic medical knowledge to this place, and that's something your characters can encounter. Or maybe there's a wild man made of metal ravaging the land. This isn't the first foray into science fiction that Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, or rather that Dungeons and Dragons has ever taken. But I think it's one of the best ones. And I think, personally, you should seize on this module as a catalyst for great gaming. So, I think we're going to leave it there because it has been going a bit long. And I am famished. I am so hungry. So, tomorrow, for our new audience members, tomorrow I will recap tonight's first edition AD&D game that I run from 10 p.m. Eastern until 1 a.m. Eastern. I'm trying to convince my players to run it a little bit longer, but I get it. It's a bit of an ask. But I would certainly like it if we could play a little bit longer. I had 13 players at a virtual tabletop, and folks seem to enjoy it. I say 13 players, and people are like, what? Are you mad? No one can have fun with that. And I'm like, hey, look, chill out. I make it work, okay? If it didn't, people wouldn't be there. They'd show up once and be like, no, I'm out. But on Tuesdays, I recap those games. And I will tell you all of what happened in the adventure. And then we'll probably dip back in and talk about some Greyhawk gods tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you, everyone who came from parts unknown to sit in and listen today. I really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the show. Thank you all for making the show grow. Because, and again, we are at 802 viewers. We are less than we no longer have hundreds of subs to this channel to get. We just have 198, and they're coming fast. So thank you so much, guys. Please click like, please click subscribe. I love you all. Thank you for making this so much fun to do, and I hope you enjoyed Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. Listen, if there's any modules that you guys would like to hear about that I have either just skimmed over or not gone over at all on Antiques Roadshow, just ask in the Discord. What's that? Oh, you didn't know we had a Discord? Yeah, hey, we got a Discord. So come over and check us out. I think you'll have fun. Let me leave that. And I'm again sorry if you are listening to this later, or you came into this later and you're like, I can't get on Facebook. I'll check out YouTube. Wait, Bill is streaming? I didn't know it. I can't get over to Facebook and stream either. So it's not my fault. Anyway, one more time. Peace to you guys. I love you all. Thanks for listening. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Be good. Bye-bye.